Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. Today we have Teo Dechev of Mundoro Capital. Mundoro is a prospect generator in Eastern Europe and Arizona. If you're looking for a company that is leveraged to copper, this is it. Teo, thank you for your time, and thank you for your work and efforts on behalf of shareholders like myself and the viewers of this channel.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. Pleasure's all on this side of the table. Go ahead and start by telling us your story, your background, and how you got started with Mundoro Capital.
Well, first, Mundoro has been a public stock for many, many years. And actually, I used to be in investment banking, and I was one of the bankers for Mundoro Capital. So that's kind of how I got to know the company. And the prior CEO of the company was also actually an equity research analyst I had worked with years ago. And so when he was really kind of trying to grow Mundoro, he asked me to join and help actually the company list in Asia, because at the time we had an asset in China. Since then, obviously, we've sold that asset, and I became the CEO, and we have transitioned the company into Eastern Europe and into, as you mentioned, Arizona and United States. So really, kind of the way that I joined was kind of helping them list in Asia, but at the same time, just really kind of stepping back and thinking about strategically long-term how to kind of build out the next growth chapter from Mundoro, and that's why we chose Eastern Europe.
Okay. Hey, are you? What's your cultural background? Are you tied to Serbia and?
I'm actually from Bulgaria, from Eastern Europe, but I've been in Canada since being a small child, so very much I think more a Canadian.
Okay. And do you speak what language? Serbian, I guess, is it?
They speak Bulgarian in Bulgaria, and I can speak the dialect because I was born there. Yes.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. That explains a lot. Okay. All right. Prospect generator. I'll read Rick's definition, and then maybe you can put it into us mere mortals in English. A prospect generator is an exploration company that uses the management's technical expertise and commercial acumen to generate investment ideas and an investment thesis, stake the physical terrain, and then bring in other partners to share the financial risk in return for a carried interest in the property and/or royalty.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, maybe you can expand on that and put it in a couple of paragraphs.
So what we do, and that's kind of a really nice way to summarize it. So we look for regions in the world, and really we're focused primarily on the western portion of the Tethyan Belt, which is in Eastern Europe, and then the Laramide Belt in Arizona. And we look within those two regions, those two belts, as to where there's an opportunity to find more copper porphyry discoveries. And based on our expertise in working in that region, understanding the geology, recognizing what the deposit characteristics are, we will pick plots of land. In Eastern Europe, we apply for them. In the United States, we stake them. So we build those land packages. And then from there, what we actually do is an initial phase of screening. So we do some of our own work in order to demonstrate that there are targets. And then we'll bring in the partners. So the partners, when they come into our assets, already have screened properties with targets on them. That is quite attractive, I think, for a lot of partners who really want to hit the ground running when they pick up a project. But also, what's unique about us is that we actually operate those projects. So what you kind of heard in that definition that Rick said, the prospect generator will bring in third parties in order to invest in those projects, but very rarely does the prospect generator actually operate. What we have found is that it's very advantageous both to our partner and to us to continue that operatorship until a partner actually earns in 100%. And so we do operate, we collect fees for operating, so that's a little bit unique in our business model, but fundamentally that royalty at the back end, as you identified in that definition, is really critical in terms of generating a lot of value. But on top of that, you don't want to wait for that commercial production royalty, because that could be 10, 15, 20 years out.
Yeah, it could be decades.
Exactly. So what does a generator do in between? And that's where we've developed a slightly different system from what had historically been done. And we actually start collecting payments right from time zero. So we have property payments, we have operatorship payments, and on top of that, we've built in milestone payments as the programs succeed throughout the life cycle of exploration.
Huh, interesting. Okay, so right now you have a partner that's essentially paying you to drill out this property for you, right?
We collect operator fees and we run those programs.
Okay.
So we are the ones who are, hiring all the contractors. We have all the staff. We're the ones doing all the sampling, the geological interpretations. We obviously hire the drilling companies, monitor that drilling, report on that. So really, we are the operator for our partners on these programs. And again, it's really important, especially in jurisdictions like Eastern Europe, where there isn't really a lot of knowledge about how to operate there. A group like us, not only do we bring to the table the project and the targets, but we also bring them to our partners that operatorship experience in the region.
Okay, and who's your partner right now?
So right now in Serbia, our partner is BHP. So there's 3 programs that they're earning into with us. And then in Bulgaria, and just as you move southeast along the belt and you cross the border into Bulgaria, so it's the same geological belt, there we have a joint venture with JOGMEC, where again, we're the operator. And JOGMEC is a division of the Japanese government that invests in base metals.
Okay, okay. And previous ones you've had Kinross and Vale?
Exactly. So Kinross was with us in the central part of Serbia, where there tends to be, the porphyry systems tend to be a bit more gold rich, so that kind of fit their portfolio. And then again in that Timok region, which is where we are with BHP currently, there we also had a property package with Vale. Now last year, and you and your readers I'm sure already know this, that Vale split their company. So they took Vale Traditional and then they spun out their base metal division. Upon doing that, the base metal division no longer had access to the iron ore cash flow and was really kind of focused on their current base metal mines, which predominantly were nickel based. Okay. And so as a result of that, and we saw that nickel price drop about 45%, they, and very normal for a lot of these big companies, they immediately cut their exploration. So globally, they cut exploration, not only in Mundoro, but even assets across the world, even in Australia and even in South America and Brazil, strangely enough. So it had nothing to do with the company or the assets. It was purely a cash flow kind of requirement from their point of view. But that's a really great opportunity for us because they returned those projects 100% to Mundoro. So after having spent $15 million on those projects with all of that data, now that's back 100% in our portfolio. And now we can do a transaction with a new group. Now, prior to Vale, in that part of that portfolio, we had Freeport. So Freeport pulled out in 2020 because a global basically COVID impacted, as you remember, the copper price quite hard in the first half of 2020. Again, big company decision, all global exploration cut in order to cut costs. So that portfolio, those projects came back to Mundoro 100%, and we immediately ended up joint venturing them out with Vale. So it's when partners leave, it doesn't mean it's the end of a program or at the end of a project. It's actually sometimes a great opportunity in order to create new value. And particularly when there's a lot of data that's a part of that, it's a tremendous opportunity. So we are actually quite thankful that Vale returned those projects 100%.
Yeah, okay. And what about the Kinross deal?
So Kinross is no longer in Central Serbia. Central Serbia is actually quite difficult to work in. So those programs were very, very slow. And we're not as focused on Central Serbia as a result of that. And we really want to focus on Eastern Serbia, which is the Timok region. Okay,
okay. And how do you get rights to this land? Like what do you do to...
Well, it's a very straightforward process. So in Eastern Europe, it's an application process. So you identify a piece of ground that you think is prospective, you identify coordinates, you apply to the government with those coordinates, you have to submit your rationale of why you're applying. The government reviews your application, and depending on the merit of your application, they will grant exploration licenses.
So this land is owned by the state?
So it's mineral rights that you get an application for, right? So you have the mineral rights, just like in the United States. You have mineral rights, and then it depends on whether you have surface rights. So in Serbia, When you have mineral rights and it's state land, you have the surface rights in order to do that work. If there's private land there, then you need to talk with landholders, just like you do in the United States, and come to terms and agreements with them on accessing land.
Okay. So that's not, it's basically the same process as here in the U.S.
It's very similar, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, prospect generator. Let's go over your team that you've built. Who do you have working for you and for the company?
Yeah, we have about 30 full-time staff in the company in Serbia because we run all of those operations. So that includes geologists, GIS and data managers, technicians, administrators, community outreach people, also people who are really responsible for managing that tenure because there's so many licenses. So managing that process is obviously very time intensive. So we have all the, let's call it pieces that an operator should need in order to make sure that programs are running smoothly. So everything from technical to actually out in the field, and then of course, what we call the administration of the programs.
Okay, 30 employees.
Then we have obviously head office personnel that just kind of manage the actual overhead of the company.
Yeah.
So accounting and administration staff.
Okay, and when, right now, BHP, when they're drilling, whose money are they using to do that?
So when a partner comes into our programs, they are 100% sole funding all activity, right? So there is, let's call it a JV entity that's set up. That entity is funded by the partner 100%. And it is those funds that are used by the operator in order to do all of the work.
And so the point I'm trying to make for our viewers that aren't familiar with your company is that BHP is paying for this drilling, and that doesn't cost us anything.
Exactly. Partners always 100% sole fund all of the programs.
Yeah, okay.
It's actually a really nice way of managing a number of different programs because as a junior, so for example, in 2023, there was a total of, when you look at our financial statements, about $13 million of exploration expenditures. So in a traditional junior, they would go out into the market, raise that money, obviously dilute the shareholders, and then spend that money. And ideally, there's results as a part of that, as an outcome. And then based on those results, would go out and raise more money in order to do more work, right? So it's a cyclical process. Whereas in a prospect generator, when your partner is 100% sole funding, there is no dilution to the prospect generator's shareholder base. And all of that upside that is created, you get to benefit from that. So it's, I think, a really great way of diversifying the risk.
Yeah. And so what's your market cap, debt, cash, and enterprise value?
So the market cap is around 20 million. We have no debt. And
in American?
In Canadian dollars.
Okay, so in American that's
16 million,
okay,
15 million. And then we have no debt. We've never carried any debt. There's no need for debt in the company. And cash is around 3.5 million. So enterprise value is around 17 million. Let's call it 16 million Canadian.
Okay, all right. So 12.5, 13 US?
Yes.
Okay. And what is, I guess, how can I say this? Like you're actually making money each year. Even though you're essentially an explorer.
Yes. So
your cash balance, I guess, is going up.
The cash balance did go up last year in 2023. So we, like I mentioned, there was $13 million of exploration expenditures. On top of that, we have G&A in the company. Usually it hovers around $1 million per year, and that's where we try very hard to try and keep. It's difficult with a lot of the inflation that's going on, but that's generally where we are. But from that $13 million of exploration expenditures, that was basically over 10 programs with 4 partners. That brought in $3 million of cash into the company. And then from that, when you deduct the G&A, and there's some additional what we do is generative work to maintain our portfolio. So we have our portfolio of projects that we want to continue generating new opportunities. So we spend about $1 million on that. And then overall, we kept the cash balance increased by $1 million. So at the end of the year, we actually grew. It's like going out into the capital markets and raising money without actually issuing any shares, which is great. And so this year in 2024, we'll be using that buffer.
Yeah, and your share count, I've noticed, hasn't you've kept the same number of shares. You haven't diluted.
Exactly. We haven't diluted for years, and the financings that we've done in the past have been very small. So it's not like we need to go out and raise $10 million, which is going to dilute the company by 50% because the market cap size. That's not the case in Mundoro. What's really great here is that you get the opportunity in really large exploration programs that are funded by the majors, but you get no dilution. And so, as we all know in exploration, when you're drilling, that's when you're creating opportunities and the potential for a discovery. But if you don't have to pay for that, and there's no dilution to shareholders, it really leverages actually the upside.
Yeah. Okay, current numbers we got. Let's see, property, where's the land? We're in Serbia, Bulgaria, Arizona. Let's talk about the properties. So we've hit on Eastern Europe a little bit. Let's go into Arizona.
Absolutely. Arizona is a really important district for copper. I mean, obviously, most of the copper, or if not all of it, comes from Arizona in the United States. What's interesting about Arizona is that if you look at all past production and then the current reserves, that, what we call metal domain of copper, is the second richest domain on the planet after Chile. That's a tremendous opportunity for the United States. So the question becomes, and everybody knows about about Arizona specifically, with all of these large mines that are in production. So there's always been this thinking of kind of looking at old development projects or old operations and getting them back online, which is a perfectly good strategy in terms of trying to advance more mineral resources. But what we felt was really being ignored by the industry was just looking for new areas for exploration. So why is there a cluster of mines here and then a barren patch in between that has pediment cover? So what's underneath that cover? Because obviously the geological units continue.
Yeah, it's there.
Exactly. So that kind of exploration, sometimes it doesn't happen when there's abundant operating mines in a region and people kind of forget about that exploration approach. So we looked at that as an opportunity for that particular region. We got involved in 2020 when kind of COVID hit, and we've picked, and as a result of kind of that thought process, actually Vale did a strategic alliance with us and basically funded all of that work. And so we advanced 3 projects into kind of operatorship. We have the Dos Cabezas project in southeastern Arizona, which went into drilling last year and is actually never been drilled before, laramide intrusive, sticking out of the ground with all the classic geochemistry and alteration demonstrating that there's a porphyry system that's driving all of those fluids. First time drill tested, and we clipped the edge of a system. So we know that particular opportunity is very compelling, and that's, again, that came back to us 100% in the portfolio, and that's a great opportunity for us to bring in more partners in Arizona. We also have the Picacho project, which is, again, another undercover target in just northwest of Tucson. And then we have one more property that we just picked up in the 4th quarter of last year called Copperopolis, which we love the name. But it's a really large area of a lot of pervasive copper mineralization that was probably really looked at in the 1930s and 40s and had been forgotten about in terms of a region for copper exploration. Again, this was part of our generative strategy. We looked into that region. We did a lot of sampling. We were really impressed with the results. And there's known copper porphyry mines in the surrounding region. So we staked that area with the government and have started kind of a more intensive sampling program, like I mentioned earlier, where we do the initial screening to demonstrate those targets, and then we'll be bringing in partners there as well.
Okay, that's exciting. So we're betting on the U.S. and Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Let's see, whose money are you spending? We went over that, not ours. And how are you going to make shareholders money in the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, it's even though it's a prospect generator, fundamentally you're creating value through exploration, right? And so whether it's your partner that's operating it or you're operating it, fundamentally what you want to be doing is generating targets that can be tested and proven into mineral deposits. So currently with BHP, we're doing a lot of that basically more advanced screening, trying to demonstrate those targets. We're doing a lot of geophysics with BHP. And then basically we'll be starting a drill program as of September and then sequentially working through a lot of the target areas. So they'll probably be drilling right into up to probably the second quarter of next year on the BHP programs.
Okay.
On top of that, with JOGMEC in Bulgaria, that's a really interesting system. We've identified the drill targets. We've gone through a very iterative process with them, with JOGMEC, our partner. We're in the permitting phase right now, so we're hopeful that we can start drilling there probably around November of this year, assuming that winter season doesn't come earlier. So again, a program of drilling with BHP, a program of drilling with JOGMEC, and then the rest of the portfolio, like I mentioned, we're looking for partners. We've already signed CAs, have people in data rooms doing site visits, so we're hopeful to get at least one more partner into those programs.
Okay. Okay. So how many, do they have any idea of how many meters they'll be drilling in each one of them?
Yeah, well, there's always a contingency plan. You have kind of a phased out approach for drilling. So right now there's 5 target areas up in the north in our Tristenic area, which we're starting with around 3,000 meters of drilling, but could expand to about 5,000 and even more, depending on results. Then there's another area in central Timok where we have a drill target of 2,000 meters. And then in the south, that's where we're conducting a lot of the geophysics. So once that program is finished and we demonstrate those targets, and then we'll develop a drill program there.
Okay. All right. So 5,000 minimum that we don't have to pay for.
It's all paid by the partner. Yes.
That is cool.
I mean, it's. I think people need to recognize that this actually works for both parties. So it's not that it's just the junior that's getting all the benefit. The major companies get a huge benefit because they can enter a region with an established portfolio, an established team, and immediately hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So it's. For them, it is as beneficial because sometimes it'll take them 2-3 years just to do that step. Whereas here, there's a partnership, there is people in place, there is targets. So for them to just basically start drilling within the first 12 months of a partnership is actually a very good outcome.
Oh, we own BHP just like we own Mundoro. So
there you go.
Yeah, I can see the value in that. You've spent your career studying copper porphyries in these regions where you speak the language, and they can just come in and say, okay, where do we go?
It's exactly. There is a team there that has been solely focused on understanding the local geology and what kind of mineralization occurs in that type of an environment. So you can take copper porphyry experience and move it around the globe more broadly, but then when you're on the ground in those specific rock units that are kind of unique to that area, having that layer of understanding is extremely beneficial to help that targeting process along.
Yeah. Okay, how do you get paid? How many shares do you and your team own? What's your vested interest?
Yeah, so we have, so in terms of share ownership, it's around 7% in the company between the management team, but all of the options in the company, so when you look at the shares outstanding, it's 104 million, there's 8 million options in the company. All of that is to staff. So what we do is we reward everybody from the top to the very bottom with options every year based on performance. So we want all of our staff to feel like owners in the business. And that is extremely important to us because it aligns you with your shareholder base. But when you're an owner, I think companies that feel that ownership structure really treat their businesses a little bit differently. So yes, everyone has a salary, but really fundamentally, everyone in the company is an owner. And it's like renting a car versus owning a car.
Yeah.
You treat your own car a little bit better than perhaps the leased car.
Yeah. Same with a home or anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes you stay late at work. You like to make it perfect when no one else is looking. I totally agree. Okay, listener questions. Cause we just talked about insider ownership. What are some other big funds that are invested in Mundoro? Oh,
this is a really good point. So in our company, we have just over 50% is held by institutions, and that actually is pretty rare for a lot of junior equities. We've been able to build out our shareholder base with institutions because of that long-term strategy. So in the prospect generator business, you kind of need that, a good example is Altius, where you need that long run rate of a business where you've got a stable portfolio. It can be self-sustaining, and it can wait for that opportunity to occur in terms of a discovery. Once that happens, then obviously it's a huge cash opportunity. So most of our institutional shareholders really, fundamentally agree with us on the importance of exploring for copper, and then B, really like that long-term strategy with kind of a lot of protection on the downside in terms of dilution, but huge optionality on the upside because of the multiple programs, the multiple partners.
Okay, so about half and half institutional, half retail?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, and also wants to know, Cause says, what are some upcoming catalysts? Actually, we talked about those.
Yes.
Adam says, Teo, could you talk about Munduro's promotional strategy? Who are your target customers? Is it more institutional than retail, North American, European? How do you go about reaching that audience?
Well, through platforms like yours. It's, the retail market has changed a lot over the last 10 years. And so obviously the institutional shareholders are very important in terms of sources of funding if that's required in the company, but really institutions don't trade. It's the retail component that trades. And when you look at retail, there isn't the traditional approach of having brokerage firms that provide research that go out to the broad retail base. A lot of those firms no longer even cover junior equities. So really as a company, what you're trying to do is make sure that you've got enough awareness around the company with investors that are looking at the resource sector. That's extremely important. And quite frankly, I think today a lot of that is through these types of opportunities, people who are on YouTube or on those types of video channels where they're talking about the equities, but also the newsletter writers. Okay. Those are a really important part of this particular conference here, of educating the retail base on what it means to be, kind of a good junior equity, and then also just kind of educating that retail base on, the specific commodities that they're interested in. Okay. So we go to conferences, we look at, channels that we can collaborate with in terms of promotion online, and then we look at building relationships with newsletter writers, and to a certain extent, some investment banks that still actually cover the junior equity stocks.
Okay. And we were talking off air that you do about 6 of these conferences a year. You're yes. on the road 2 weeks out of every month.
Yes, it's a lot of travel.
Yeah, you see a lot of places.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what is the biggest unanswered question facing Mundoro?
Like we talked about this, it's, I think exploration is just, as long as people understand that it is very high risk, but it is very high reward. And what we're particularly looking for is these types of copper porphyry systems where if you make a discovery that's economic and has the potential to fill the needs of the major companies like a BHP, those are worth billions of dollars. So I think, just investors just should always kind of balance out that risk reward in their mind. Okay.
All right. What could go wrong? What are some potential headwinds?
Lots of exploration is complicated. You can have weather issues. You can have operational issues. You can have, constraints on finding proper labor. It's, it's when you're running an operation, just like any business, you just have to make sure that you're thinking ahead through the programs, ensuring that you're planning it out properly, and ensuring that you have contingency plans for your operator, for your plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And give us the base case for copper. We all know it. We're all invested in copper, but we also like hearing it. What's the bullish argument for copper?
Well, I think in the last 6 months, as we've all heard, there is yet another really important need for copper, which is all the AI infrastructure build out. So I don't know if your listeners also listen to kind of the tech sector, but essentially if you listen to NVIDIA's Investor Day, which was about 6 weeks ago,
okay.
and right, they basically have an annual meeting to talk about their future forecasts. So each GPU that they build has 2 miles of copper wiring. They actually said that in their presentation, and they emphasize that as an advantage because that obviously makes their GPUs extremely fast. So what was interesting is that if you have 2 miles of copper wiring in every GPU, and you're selling millions and millions of these GPUs, and there is front-end demand where they just can't keep up with, that is just another layer of need for copper in this whole electrification of the economy. So I think when we all think about copper, we just have to keep kind of cognizant of the fact that electrification is such a fundamental part of our just existence that will be it's a driver for copper that's not going to go away. It's not a sentiment thing. It's not, if everybody likes to see the light switch go on, then you're going to need copper. So keeping all of that in mind, the demand is completely outstripping supply. So, you know, if you look at, there was actually a really great research paper done by the University of Chicago just a little while ago that was published. Basically what they showed is that even at the current base case, without even the new need by AI infrastructure, based on the base case and looking at some of the kind of electric vehicle mandates that governments have, there's going to be a 5 million tons per year deficit in copper. The world's largest copper mine is about 850 million tons. Right? So, 850,000 tons. And so you're going to need 5 Escondidas every single year producing in order to meet that demand. So being in the sector, recognizing how hard it is to basically make discoveries of Escondida size, it's clearly an unachievable goal. Yeah. So there is a huge importance being put on exploration to find more copper deposits.
Which is where you come in.
Exactly. No, we're fundamentally, I think, a really important part of that puzzle going forward in terms of electrification of the economy.
I hope so. We are literally betting on it. Teo, any final thoughts?
No, that's thank you for the great questions.
Yes. Okay. If people want to contact you and learn more about your company, how can they do so?
Absolutely. Come to our website. Even on the homepage, we've got where they can reach out to us. But send us an email. They can send an email to me, or they can send an email through the info@mundoro.com, or just give us a call on the phone.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Teo, thank you very much. Yes. I wish you the best of luck. Really looking forward to this one. This is a lot of fun. And thank you for tuning in. Support the show and share this with anyone that you think needs to hear it. It's probably your buddy. They can't stop talking about tech stocks. You have yourself a great rest of the day, and we will talk to you next time.